Yeah, well, it was first unexpected when I started the book is to get to know your story, Ryan, and that I enjoyed very much. I think it was very personal, and you explained your path also and your family route into Japan, and I think it was very nice to read, and it created a very strong bond to start with. The second thing I liked is when you did split the different chapters in the book, I thought it was extremely clear, guiding well, giving a lot of testimonies, and it helped me actually to reflect on myself because today I retired, but my path for the past 30 years in Japan was to reach that goal to become a CEO, and it helped me to reflect on everything I did and everything I could have done better, everything that I actually experimented or experienced over the years. So I think the book was a great book, not just for people who want to become CEO, but also for people who are CEO or eventually retired as a CEO, to either prepare, plan, or reflect on what we did, what is needed. So I liked it very much. And I think it was concise, easy to read, extremely well structured. And voila, I think it was full of stories and good exercises, or it's nice, and I can only recommend people to have a look at, read through, and take the best parts and apply to their own lifestyles.
What were some of those parts or those principles that intrigued you and triggered you to reflect?
I liked at the beginning very much choosing the path, and that's the opening of the book, if I recall well. I mean, do you want to become a CEO? Do you prepare yourself to become a CEO, or do you want to stay on the safe side? Are you comfortable being safe and not taking challenges, or do you want to take challenges and move on and prepare yourself for something which is bigger, greater, more challenging, eventually more risky? So I think this was already a very important step at the opening of the book to understand what is coming. I don't know if I answered fully your question here, but that's what helped me to understand the beginning and to jump into then the different chapters of the book.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned about the concept of clarity, and you walked me through how you were able to put, your 7 years or so of goals and experience at Triumph, your most recent company, into one page. So,
Page.
what does clarity mean for you?
The first thing is when you start a new job as a CEO or any job, I believe, is to understand why you are taking that position and what do you want to achieve with this position and what is roughly your timeline for this position. I usually set myself a timeline from 5 to 6 years top, because I consider that the first 2 years is a learning curve. The third, fourth is absolutely delivering on this job position. And then eventually 5 and 6 is considered the next step and moving on. So this is how I personally clarified my own path. That's for myself. But when it comes to the job, and I took a job as CEO in two different companies, Swarovski and Triumph, is to look at what's happening in the company and how you can change the course or the path or the strategy. And this is for me extremely important because actually for the two experiences I had as a CEO, 180 degrees changed the way the company was being driven, eventually through people change or strategy change or strategy change. But I think that's very important, is define what you want to achieve for yourself, but also for the company. And when I joined Triumph, I had a very clear view based on the first CEO experience of what I wanted to achieve. And that's what took me 7 years actually in Triumph to deliver. You said, yes, one page. And this was quite a guiding principle for me. I had a one-page strategy over the 7 years. And you could say, well, but the world has changed and there was pre-COVID and during COVID and post-COVID. How could you stick to a one page on why you didn't change? Well, I revisited my strategy, of course, prior, during, and after the COVID, and I validated the points, and I made sure that what I decided at one point was still valid, and if there was a need to steer slightly differently, adjust. But at the end of the day, the path I had seen for Triumph was, for me, the right one, up to my successor to come with different views or different vision, and to change what I did or to move in a different direction. That's a different call.
How you describe all that is so clear and sounds easy. But just like that example of in the book of the fork in the road, the less traveled path, there's weeds and bush to cut down to get to where you want to go. Can you give us a little bit of color and insight into what that struggle looked like to turn around a business at Swarovski, for example, and the volume to value paradigm shift that you arrived at Triumph?
At Triumph,
For
yes.
someone who aspires to achieve the level of clarity that you've demonstrated and impact, what does that journey look like?
Well, first you need to be clear with yourself about what you want to achieve and what you're good at. In my career for the past 20 years, always took care of consumers. Having a focus on service delivery, quality, staff engagement in stores, store management, everything related to the retail environment. And this is my specialty. So when I joined Triumph, the model of Triumph was more on the wholesale side, focusing on product, focusing on delivery, focusing on mass volume, and focusing on pushing the business to the distribution. I thought this model was not functioning, the company was not making profit, and people were not motivated, and the skills that I found in the company were not the one that I had in mind to turn around. So the first thing was to explain to people what I want and change eventually the mindset or eventually change the teams in order to deliver on what you want. And that, as a CEO, you need to be very clear about what is your objective, how you're going to communicate about it, and how you're going to deliver it, and with who. Unless you define this very clearly at the beginning, in the first 2-3 months, well, there is no strategy, there is no vision, there is chaos. So the best way for me to communicate with all the employees, Triumph is 2003, it's a large organization in Japan, is to define very clearly what you want and tell them, for me on the A4 page, what would be the goal. And my goal was to deliver value, as you mentioned, rather than volume. And when you deliver value, you think about the brand benefit for the consumers, you think about the consumer journey, you think about delivering a loyalty program, a new digital platform, engagement for the fashion advisors. I mean, it defines everything you want to achieve. If you don't define clearly from the very first start what is your goal and what you're good at, well, it's hard to adjust. And I close on this because it's a bit long. Before COVID, I was convinced that the consumer service was the must and the experience in stores. During COVID, it was even more important because the few customers that were shopping were expecting a special service. And after COVID, it was even more important because consumers could go anywhere online, shop in any location. And for me, the core and the essence of keeping loyalty was to make sure that you deliver something that adds value to the consumer. So I validated these 3 phases before, during, and after over the course of 7 years in Triumph, and I made sure that what I wanted was still relevant.
How you explain all this, clearly you are so intuitive as a leader, as a general manager, the president of a company, and accomplishing this kind of turnaround in multiple companies is no easy feat. So, clearly there's a great deal of talent you have. What kind of professional coaching or training have you received to give you structure to be able to execute on these strategies?
Actually, to be transparent with you, I'm not a very structured person. I'm more
Okay.
intuitive. And for some of your listeners or readers, I'm going to talk a little bit about the MBTI profile, Myers-Briggs. And I did trainings many years ago. I loved it so much. I identified my profile as ESTP, entrepreneur type. So I have, of course, good qualities, but I have also lots of weaknesses. And I think one of the first important things in my career path was to understand, to be aware of what I can do and I can't. And once you know what you can't, because you need to focus on what you can't at some point, is surround yourself with people who can. And I would not like to work in a company where there are 20 people like me, because that would be awful. I prefer to know better myself first and then be surrounded by people who can deliver on things I cannot do myself. One of them being structured, because I'm more intuitive, entrepreneur, I have ideas, I jump from A to B very fast, I'm pushing people, I have passion, I'm demanding, but at the same time I need people to help me to organize the wall, the bricks. Otherwise it's gonna fall for sure, because I'm jumping in every direction.
And you mentioned when we spoke last time about that Myers-Briggs assessment, and I've taken the free one, the 15-minute
Hmm.
one, and indeed very insightful. And for someone watching this who wants to gain this kind of self-awareness and take a free resource like this to learn more about themselves, you spoke so passionately about it. But tell me a little bit more about how that simple assessment has impacted your.
As I said, I met many leaders in different organizations, and I had many different employees or directors level that usually or sometimes were not aware of their own strengths or own weaknesses. And I think I was one of them 10 years or 12 years ago when before I started the top management positions. And by doing this simple exercise, it helped me to define more clearly who I am. I could sense it, of course,
Mhm.
but I could not define or put a word on it. And that helped me to understand clearly what I was good at and who I could work with and what I was bad at doing. And from that moment, I became more aware. And once you become more aware, you can adjust, adapt, learn. I was not maybe a good listener, maybe I'm still not, but I took time to pause, to slow down, to assess, to question people, to make sure that they were comfortable. You know, that's some perspective that this self-assessment can give you. And unless you do it, you basically don't know. You're on a fast track car and you're unstoppable, or you think you're unstoppable until you crash.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I did a similar one about a year ago. It is called Gallup Strengths, and I paid money for it, about 89 Canadian dollars, so not that much. And it took about 45 minutes to get through it. And what I liked about that was it gave not only a very thorough breakdown, but also cautions. So one of my top strengths is activator, right? I make a decision when others are stuck to move things forward. And it also gave a caution around that. So be careful not to be bulldozing or too domineering. And that made me hesitate for a long time because especially growing up in an international school as one of the few foreigners in the class, and most of my classmates were Japanese, I had this sort of innate sense of, Ryan, keep your mouth shut or you'll be rejected.
Hmm.
And it wasn't really until I did the Gallup Strengths test that I gave myself permission to, when appropriate, be that activator and at the same time be aware not to be domineering or
Hmm.
bulldozing. But I felt like it was very much like a permission for me to be my authentic self. And that, in fact, is what triggered starting the project of writing this book,
Hmm.
get
Hmm.
started, and help others get unstuck with these resources.
That's great.
So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else that I'm sure you've interviewed lots of people. You see leaders at all levels, ambitious ones, perhaps contented ones, and there's nothing wrong with either. In terms of selling yourself, what kind of misconceptions do you think people have about selling themselves, and how does this book challenge those misconceptions?
Well, alors, I did performance evaluations with many of my employees over the years. I could see some coming with a low grade self evaluation. They lower their grade systematically. And you need to basically highlight their strengths and put them on the success path and stimulate them to blossom. And I've seen some others where they are systematically self-evaluating themselves top of the chart in every dimension. And sometimes for good reasons, because they are good, but often because they are overestimating their skills and talents. And it's a bit strange to say this, but you need then to find ways to recalibrate either the one who are too humble and the one who are too bold, and find ways to guide them in the right way. In Japan, though, we deal also sometimes with a deep profile where Japanese people are not extremely bold in saying what they want or who they are or what they can achieve. So I spend a lot of time in my job to coach and develop and discuss with my team members and prepare them, give them a 2 years, 3 years vision, tell them where I would like them to go and what I want them to develop and which project I want them to work on, and give them the opportunity to either blossom or give them the opportunity to make sure that their assessment is the good one. I think the book is great in a sense that it gives, again, what I like is this not a tunnel path. And again, I honestly, and it's true, it's not just for you, but I read it many times, or many chapters. Again, today, to prepare this discussion with you, I wanted to again, read through and look at the different points. And I think it's full of practical information that at one point I would say for someone in a career is a push the pause button, read the book, self-reflect, and prepare yourself for the next stage. And you can achieve this with the coach, of course, which takes more time and probably more money. Or you can read through the pages and again, self-reflect. And that's what I liked about the experience I had when I got the book in my hands as a pre-read. Thank you. And in December, when we started to talk about it, I just opened the first pages, sent you a WhatsApp, and I said, wow, Ryan, great. I'm so happy I have it because it makes me think about what I did. And I think this is nice. Did I answer your question?
Beautiful. Beautifully. Thank you. What's one thing in this book that you wish you had known earlier in your career?
There are quite many, actually. The top of mind here is, and it's probably related to the competency or the self-assessment that we were talking about, is the networking. As strange as it seems, it's not the core element. Of course, it's one element. I mean, I think in a career you have 1/3 of skills, 1/3 of, the experience or the success that can come from working in a successful organization. And I would call it luck. Sometimes you need luck.
Yeah.
It's not just about skills, it's luck. And maybe 1/3, and again, you can change the percentage the way you want. 1/3 is probably about connections and networks and the people you meet, which could be also related to luck at some point. Network is something I disregarded when I was N-1 in the organization. I was too busy. I was looking at my job first and foremost. I'm not saying that the CEO are not looking at their job. I'm just saying that they have eventually a bit more time, or it's part of their job also to network with people. Mm-hmm. And maybe something I could have done better or faster is network with people earlier in my career. And I truly started to do it only in 2012 when I became the CEO of Swarovski, either because I had the status to do it, connect with CEOs, because I was one part of the gang. But it's something that I could have done better before, more systematically, and I would probably have had more confidence and resources and opportunities earlier, eventually. So it's not a core in a career, but it's something that we should not overlook. And it's something that you need to cultivate, and it takes time. And I'm going to give you one example. I used to work with department stores since 2003 in Japan. At the time, I was working for Cartier and then after Van Cleef & Arpels. And this connection I had with the leaders of the department stores when they were in their 50s, as me, it's something I kept until my 50s or mid-end 50s. And these guys became CEOs of their own group.
Right.
And because of this connection and this network, and this trust that I built over the years, well, I had a different access to different leadership positions and leader decisions with my partners as well, and it was greatly helping. So when I see so many people being competent but shy under the water, and yes, the networking in your book is talking a lot about it. Not just this; it's one chapter, but I think it's very important to work on it.
Yeah. That you don't have to be a CEO to network.
No, but of course it helps. But I've seen in my career, I remember one French guy who started in Van Cleef & Arpels at the age of 23. In French, we say that the teeth were scratching the table, with ambition and ambition. But he was smart. And from the age of 23, 25, he understood already networking and connection and the power of knowing people. And I think that's something that I probably was missing. And I think your book is talking about it, is something to take into consideration.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that. It's not just a skill that can benefit a job seeker, but really, there's a saying that if you hang around 5 millionaires, you'll be the sixth, or, if you hang around 5 alcoholics, you'll be the sixth, or, things like that. So it's really about surrounding yourself with the right people that you want to be like, that uplift you, and going back to the Myers-Briggs assessment, complement your weaknesses as well. Mm-hmm. As a CEO, being able to be aware of that and surround yourself with the right people is a skill anyone can start at any time,
Exactly.
even, in high school clubs, even,
Yes,
and
yes.
beyond. So, yeah. Well, thank you, Vincent. That's been really, really insightful. I suppose a parting message is, if you've just been retired since 4 weeks ago,
4 weeks.
congratulations.
Thank you.
And if you were to lead, if you were to imagine your best leaders, regardless of seniority in the company, but your best people, the people you've enjoyed working with the most in your career, if you can imagine them all in a room right now and you're giving them sort of a parting message to inspire them to be the next generation of leaders, what would you say?
I had some guiding principles for myself during my career. It was about engagement, passion, determination, but resilience also, because it's not easy. I mean, the industry I've been working for was not exactly very successful. I mean, I transformed, reorganized, and so on. But at the end of the day, when you need to have guiding principles, not talking about honesty or all this kind of stuff, which are dearly important to me, but passion, engagement, determination, resilience are the things that I care most. Everything is possible as long as you know exactly where you want to go. I mean, the people who don't know what to do, what to achieve, what is the goal, what they could bring to the organization or deliver, I mean, they're usually not successful, unfortunately. So I did depart a month ago. I was talking to my team. I said how much I was happy that I worked for them, with them, together. When I worked for them, I was defending them, I was supporting them, I was guiding them, coaching them as much as I could, not being perfect, but trying. So having guiding principles is on the goal is probably what makes people achieve more than the others. And I think this is what I told them. Keep working. I don't want to take any advertising here, but do something positive and move forward and have a clear path ahead. Otherwise, it's impossible. If you jump from A, B, Z, N, P, Q overnight, I mean, there is no way to move forward, to my opinion. You need to know exactly what you want to deliver.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And that's really where the message of the book starts, is knowing where you're going, or someone will decide for you. So thank you, Vincent. That's been really inspiring, and I'm looking forward to sharing this with an audience. So thank you very much
You're welcome.
for all that.
Just one word, congratulations on the book. I know you worked a lot on it, but I think you achieved a great result. It's very nice. Again, it's pleasant to read. I enjoyed it. And I don't have any money from you on that side. I'm just purely giving my honest opinion about it.
Thank you.
It's nice, and you did a great job. So keep up.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Vincent.
Okay. Thank you.